Now, National Security Advisor John Bolton today meeting with a South Korean security chief right here in Washington. And among the topics on their agenda, the proposed meeting between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un and the release of 3 U.S. citizens that are currently being held in the North. ABC's John Lawrence reports on the changing relationship between both of the countries.
Getting prisoners to return to U.S. soil is a high priority for the Trump administration.
A week into the president's term in office, he turned to our previous Secretary of State and said, bring home Americans who are being held overseas.
And it seems that 3 U.S. detainees in North Korea could be released soon.
This is a great step. Every time we bring an American home, that is a great accomplishment.
The White House couldn't confirm a timeline for their possible release, but earlier this week, President Trump tweeted, "Stay tuned."
We think that that would be an incredible sign of goodwill and certainly a great statement for the North Koreans to make ahead of the summit and the discussions.
The expectations for those talks between Mr. Trump and his North Korean counterpart, Kim Jong Un, are high.
And we are looking forward to what they have pledged, which is exactly that, denuclearization.
And North Korea has also committed to talks to formally end its war with South Korea.
It would certainly be a wonderful thing to have the war formally brought to an end. That's something that the president has said that he firmly supports. We would certainly support that as well.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
And joining us now with more on the situation in North Korea and the possible release of those prisoners, among other things, George Washington University professor Dr. Amitai Etzioni. He's an expert on Korean affairs, and we have talked with you before, Professor, and it's great to have you back now.
Good to be here.
Big picture, there's a lot going on. We heard today the president might actually come up with a date and a time and that sort of thing. What's your overall impression about what's going on here?
Something very fishy and peculiar is happening. And North Korea is making one major concession after the other. I'm not talking about a prisoner release. That's the kind of thing you do for goodwill. But they said they're not going to test anymore. They removed the requirements that they remove our troops. Major issue in the past. And they're visiting to show that they close the nuclear site. Usually, you do this during negotiation. You give something, you get something back. Giving all this before you sit down, the only way you can explain this is the following. So you want to be a nuclear power. You need 3 things. You need a hardware. He has that. You need to show that it works. Yet he did that. Now he's afraid that somebody's going to take away his marbles because we said we're not going to tolerate that. So now you need everybody to calm down. So now you become very loving. For the next year, you're going to be very nice. A year or 2 from now, when the negotiation is going to fail, people are going to say, well, he had his weapon for 2 years, you know. So the idea is to get the world used to the fact that they are nuclear power.
So you're not buying the fact that Kim Jong Un has said that he will denuclearize?
Would you make a treaty with the United States after it just walked away from the Paris Accords? It just gave away on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's just threatening to cancel the treaty with Iran. Would you trade nuclear weapons, which you took the bread out of your people's mouth for 60 years, for a piece of paper? This is unbelievable.
There's also another issue here that we don't talk about at all. It's not just that North Korea is a nuclear power, it is also a chemical and biological weapons power as well. And in fact, they may have actually been financing evil doing in other parts of the world with those weapons.
It's a very important issue you raised. That's the mistake we made with Iran. We focus on nuclear weapons, which are obviously very important, but we disregarded all the other issues we have with Iran. So then we made a treaty, we lifted sanctions, and now we say, well, wait a moment, what about all these other issues? We make the same thing here. They have between 2,500 to 5,000 tons of chemical weapons, the 3rd largest stockpile in the world, and we're not discussing it. We need to broaden the horizon. By the way, I think John Bolton will get that point.
The administration is going to say, look, we've got to start somewhere. Right. There's been no rapprochement almost at all here, and at least we're going to sit down and we're going to talk. Do you buy that?
Well, there's no harm in talking, but the question is, are we in effect, in the result, legitimating him?
Sure.
And if we allow
absolutely, I think the answer to that question
and if we drag it on and on and on, let's assume a year and a half from now I'm right, and we decide he doesn't mean business, okay? Are we then going to attack him? So the question is, I think we should sit down and say, but 3 weeks we'll find out if you mean business or not.
Now, as for these prisoners, these 3 Americans that are being held by the North, Rudy Giuliani said that he expected they would be released soon. If they are released, does President Trump get the credit for this?
Well, I think he deserves credit. I have not voted for him, but he's coming on strong. Clearly brought North Korea to the table. It's not the only reason. The economic sanctions, China, but putting the heat on them seems to be working, and getting the people released is a good gesture. That's all good.
You mentioned the sanctions too quickly because we're running against the tyranny of the clock here. Would it be a mistake in your view to relax those sanctions? Kim Jong Un might say, hey, look, I gave you the prisoners back. I need a show of good faith from you. How about release the sanctions?
No, do you show us goodwill? We'll show you goodwill. We send you a bunch of flowers. Or some the Redskin, what do you call them? The
cheerleaders?
It's a cheerleader.
Okay. George Washington University professor Dr. Amitai Etzioni, good to talk to you.
Good to
Always
have you.
interesting to hear your perspective.
Thank you, Sarah.